All right, we are coming to you live from Tallahassee, Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, and Tampa, Florida, as we bring you another victorious edition of the Osceola's Seminoles Sidelines First Impressions. I am joined by, as always, former FSU offensive lineman and a member of the 1993 National Championship team, Mark Salva, and then, of course, by FSU graduate and Tampa sports radio and television icon, JP Peterson. Guys, how's it going?
Well, I got the icon today. Nice.
Yeah.
What's up, boys?
I got you. You there?
Yeah,
Mark?
great win today.
Yeah, Mark, Minister of Meat, I see. And we're going to talk a little bit about Mark's game day menu. But, Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all good.
All right, guys. So, listen, FSU moves to 6-0 in the season after a throttling of Syracuse in a game that was really set up well for Florida State coming into this against Syracuse. They did a lot of things well that Syracuse did not. JP, you and I talked a little bit about it on your show in Tampa yesterday, but obviously, probably not as big a halftime lead as what most people want, but I think it was 17-3 at half, and then of course they really rolled out the second half and doubled up on the yardage and doubled up on the yardage on Syracuse. But Mark, we'll start with you. Just your overall impressions of the game, then we'll get into a little bit of the offense and defense.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep my my trend of going negative on these games, even though we're 6-0, and say I can't believe this defense allowed 3 points. I mean, come on,
well,
where are the standards? Where are the standards of this team? I mean, no, seriously. I mean, dominating defensive performance, obviously. Look, to me, this was the best performance in the Adam Fuller era. He got everything exactly right. The balance of blitzing, changing up the fronts, the game plan, everything. He got it all exactly right. It was. I loved how the defense flew around today and just forced the action. Right, they forced Schrader into making quick decisions. They were in the backfield. They were making, the running backs make quick cuts, and I mean, it was the best defensive performance I can think of, in recent memory. And then offensively, we just. We did what we had to do. Keon Coleman was the difference. The difference makers were difference makers. Coleman, Jaheim Bell, Trey Benson, tough running. LT breaking one. Just a lot of contributions. Jordan Travis doing what Jordan Travis does this year. And, I think the only negative I can say is, the opportunities in the red zone. The execution in the red zone was less than stellar, even though we did convert for field goals. But there were some plays there that we didn't pull off, and going for it on fourth down after the turnover, it is what it is. But you know what? We're bowl eligible 6 games in, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. JP, what were your initial thoughts? I know you were frustrated with the decision not to go for the field goal.
Yeah, that's just silly stuff. I was a little frustrated the way Mike was managing the game on those fourth downs. It's still a game. Take your 3 points. Your field goal kicker is automatic. Go ahead and take on it's fourth and goal at the 1 or 2. I could see you going for it. Fourth, from the 4, that's a bit of a stretch. And then the other fourth down, I didn't mind going for it there, but the call is just terrible. I don't know why. Jordan was right. Why are you taking me out? Let me handle this thing. I got this. And I think Jaheim made a bad cut, didn't follow his lead blocker, so you don't get that one. Those are 2 instances you got to come away with points right there in a game that's still in doubt. And I understand. You could see now, Mike understands now that style points are going to matter. Style points are going to matter. So you got, you want to get to 50, you want to get the blowouts. I get that, but let's just make sure, let's win the game first. Let's don't give them any life. We saw that last week with Virginia Tech. We saw with Boston College. You're on your way to rolling. Just go ahead and roll. Take the points where you can. So I was again, but nitpicking, right? Here we are. Yep. This is a defense now and I agree with Mark. This last week I was very upset. I said this is not a championship defense, and I get it. You did not play an offensive juggernaut today in Syracuse. They're not terrific, but Garrett Schrader can run the football, and we've been less than stellar at stopping running quarterbacks this year. Let's just put it that way. So I think they did a better job with that. You hold them to 12 total first downs, 261 total yards, just 6 of 19 on third down. That was big. 1 for 2 on fourth down. So A lot of really good stuff from the defense. I thought, and I thought their pressure game was excellent. I'm glad they drew up some different pressures, got some good pressure on Schrader. That was great. Offensively, I mean, man, what can you say about Keon Coleman? God bless the transfer portal, right?
Yep.
This guy is such a difference maker. He's a playmaker, a difference maker on so many levels. That one-handed catch, and I don't know about you guys, but I was like, he could have used two hands there if he wanted to.
He was showing off his basketball skills. It was like going up for a slam dunk.
He said, "You know what? I don't need to. I just need one."
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's
it's funny is I was talking to Jerry Thursday, and he asked me, he goes, "What do you think we should do since we're going to miss Johnny Wilson?" I said, we still got Keon. I'm okay. I'm good."
Yeah. So it's good to see Hakeem get in there. You know, you could see his playmaking ability, and I think they need that. I think they need to get some other guys to football. We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Start mixing in some other game breakers because there's talent on this team, as you guys know. There's talent everywhere. So we saw a couple different guys get the ball this time. Teofili, of course, is always the threat to take it to the house. He did that. Hakeem. And then Coleman just everywhere.
Darion Williamson made some.
We saw Darion. Yep.
Yeah,
he's smooth. That brother's smooth.
Yeah, I like him a lot. You know, and even Dustin Hill, you know, caught some key passes there. You know, keep the drive alive. You know, we were backed up. So that you're right, JP. There's a lot of talent because Holmes looked in Hill, and I mean, we got backs, we got receivers, we got tight ends. I mean, Biscuit. You know, that on that one screen when the contested ball ripped out of the guy's hand. I mean, that was a nice play, just showing the strength he has to make that screenplay. I mean, and you know, look, it was they run a defense that presents a lot of different problems, and we seem to handle it pretty well. I mean, George got hit that one time, but that was just Rob Scott getting beat one-on-one on a 3-man rush. But other than that, I don't think there was a whole lot of pressure that that really bothered Jordan.
No.
So look, we did what we're supposed to do against this team, and that was a convincing win. Because in terms of Mike going for it on fourth down there, he's probably thinking that they're not going to score on us unless something crazy happens. And so what really is it a big risk? Was the game really at stake?
Nah, you're probably right.
Probably his mind, probably not.
Now, listen, even at 17-3, I thought Florida State had control of the game from the get-go. I mean, listen, they scored in the second quarter on the long pass to Keon. But really, I thought the story of the day was the defense. We talked in our keys to victory where the staff takes a look at two keys. Every single one of us had contained Garrett Schrader, and that's exactly what they did. 9 of 21 for 99 yards passing, 7 rushes, and obviously this includes sacks for minus 10 yards. So you did exactly what you were supposed to do there. And then, of course, listen, we've got to give this secondary some credit. I mean, they never had any vertical threats in the passing game. Everything that they did was a lot of it was scramble plays where they're coming back for the ball. That's where they made the majority of their yards in the passing game. Guys, I think we saw about 10 batted passes between the defensive backs, defensive line, linebackers. Is there anything that you guys are seeing that they're doing different in the secondary? Obviously we can sit here and say that, you should have stopped Syracuse's passing game because they don't throw the ball very well. But it's the second week in a row that they should have shut down a passing game of an opponent, and they've done it. And it's something that we have not seen. So you got to give credit to the defense for that, I think.
Well, I think the quarterback was under duress a lot more this game. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the key as far as that goes. I mean, they don't have playmakers on the outside, but he never got a chance to really look. And I think that was the big key for me. And again, Fuller mixing up pressure early. We just didn't line up with a 5 box and play 2 deep covers the whole time. Jaheim Brown was on the second level right at the snap of the ball, just about every snap. And, blitz probably half the time. And to me, that's a good change up for us, and that goes to show that we didn't think they had much of a threat to the outside. And that was, that's what you do when that's the case. So, the pressure, the 5-man pressures, the length that we have. I mean, Pat Payton probably batted down how many balls? At least 2 that I can think of, and maybe more. So great job by those guys.
Yeah, they had 9 total according to the stats, which we'll see what we get from PFF in the morning. But yes, Patrick Payton had 2, Shaheem Brown had 1, DJ Lundy 1, Fintrell Cypress 2, Patrick Payton, Renardo Green 1, AZ 1. Edwin Joseph 1, and he got in some late playing time. So, and I think there was more than I know. A couple of defensive linemen had deflections. And listen, I think Shaheem Brown had his best game. He's getting credited with 13 tackles right now with a sack and a half, a TFL, and a pass breakup. DJ Lundy continues to be impressive, guys, particularly against the run. He had 6 total tackles, 3 solo, and then Kalen DeLoach, obviously, he had 8. Half a sack and half a TFL. But certainly this defense seems to be finding itself as you get ready to play probably one is particularly if Riley Leonard's available next week. We'll find a little bit more about that tonight when they take on NC State. I'm sure that they'll have an update on his progress during that game. I don't think he's expected to play, but certainly, guys, we saw a ton of young guys play in this game, as you would expect on both sides of the ball. But we talk about the development of both sides of the ball as the season goes on. Is there anything in particular you guys have seen on defense, or whether it's a personnel thing or a scheme thing, that you guys think has, seen the second half of the season? They come out of the open week and they've played really well on defense the last 2 weeks. Again, as you said, JP, 261 total yards. Yeah. And really, listen, there was really no threat in the run game from Syracuse either, 36 for 124. I mean, it was a dominant performance.
3.4 per rush, I think. That's one of the better games I think the Noles have had this year. That was impressive. And Peyton, you mentioned him. He's becoming more active in playmaker. I'd still like to, I know Jared got the fumble recovery, but I'd still like to see more from him. In certain passing downs, you look at number 5 and, it doesn't look like a top 5 effort, NFL draft effort at times for me. And maybe he's getting bored. Maybe he's trying to protect himself. I don't know, but I'd like to get a little bit more out of him, more splash plays. I think it's interesting in a week where Winston Wright leaves that 10 players caught passes today. 10 players caught passes, 7 guys got touches in the run game. So I think, I don't think that's by accident. I don't think that's by accident. So some of these kids down the depth chart need to get some playing time. They need to get rewarded. They need to see their names in the stat sheet. And just because, this is a problem we haven't had in a long time, right?
Yep.
Keep talented players around. So, but we're 2 things we have to worry about now that we haven't, first of all, let's stop talking about bowl eligible. All right. We don't need to use those 2 words anymore. All right. Let's get rid of that jargon. We don't have to talk about that anymore. And, when we got to worry about keeping guys happy and feeding them. So these are good problems to have. I'm much more, I think, upbeat after watching them do what they did today. And I know it was kind of boring at times, right? It was clinical. Was clinical. And you never really felt like last week it was 22-0. You wanted them to just blow them out. And, things got a little dicey, right?
That's what I was going to say. That's the difference between this week and last week is we had control the whole time. And that was the thing that frustrated me last week against Virginia Tech was that we lost control of the game.
Right.
This week we kept it. And I'm going to have to disagree with you on Jared Verse, JP. I think he's playing hard. Remember, we've been going against some running quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And, what I see a guy, he's trying to do a disciplined rush. And, most of the teams we've played have been, throwing quick game. They're not holding on to the ball very long. I think when we start seeing some of these more, I'm trying to think who they would be. A guy like Graham Mertz or even Tyler Van Dyke that are not necessarily running quarterbacks.
Yeah,
that's a Jared Verse game, right? Riley Leonard, maybe not so much.
And I think we saw a little bit more of it last week, right? I mean, Virginia Tech did a little bit more pocket passing than Syracuse did. You noticed jumping off the rewatch last week that Jared was explosive off the ball. And probably a little bit with the difference in Syracuse's offense. I don't think maybe he stood out as much this week because of how they were playing Syracuse versus how they were playing Virginia Tech.
And when you blitz like that, there's a very intentional gap discipline that comes with that, right? So if you're bringing guys off the edge, you got to make sure you contain your gap because there's nobody behind you to erase a mistake if you're in the wrong gap, right? Yep. So that's another thing. And so, look, like I said, I think Adam Fuller got it exactly right. He had the perfect mix, perfect plan, and for this team. And, I'd like to see more of that. The thing to me that separates our defense this game than maybe in some past games when we play teams of this caliber is, like I said in the beginning, we dictated the pace of the game to the defense, right? We didn't just sit back and react. We were the aggressors on defense. And that's Florida State defense. That's our DNA, from our championship years. We dictate the pressure on defense. We're going to block every punt. We're going to pressure every quarterback. We're going to load the box for the run. I mean, we're going to dictate. That's what we did this game. And I'd like to see more of that moving forward because we got the athletes to be able to do that. It definitely, in the back end's getting better. And you know what? It's that mentality of see ball, go get ball. And that's Florida State, and so I'd like to see more of that moving forward for sure.
Well, listen, one of the things that all three of us have talked about, whether it's been on your show, JP, or you and I have talked about it on First Impressions and Seminole Sidelines, Mark, I remember Coach Bowden used to say it's hard to get up for every game, and sometimes you got to rely on the fact that you're the better team or your fundamentals or your technique. And listen, we're not down the field. It's hard to get. You're in a protected room. You don't get much sound. It's hard to get a feel for the environment in the press box. Yeah. But certainly, it seems with a 12 o'clock kickoff, certainly Florida State's coaches and players knew they were much better than the Syracuse team they were facing, and we did see a more methodical effort, and it was more businesslike. And I think that's key to the development of this team, particularly with some of the teams they're going to play as they wind down this season. But is that something you hang your hat on if you're Mike Norvell and his staff?
Yeah, I mean, especially we're going to be favored just about every. I think moving forward, we'll probably be favored in every game.
Yeah.
There'll be degrees to how much better we are than any team. I'm like with you, JP, is this a championship defense? I think that's the biggest question about how far this team goes is the defense. And can the offense be consistent? And can Jordan, get that sharpness he had at the end of last year?
Yeah.
He's still not exactly sharp. He's still off a little bit here, a little bit there. I think of that out to Morlock, that was like on third down.
Yeah.
It was just a little high, a little outside. Even the throw to Keon that he caught, that was a high ball. It was still out to Jaheim Bell. He was breaking open and he overthrew him. He hit him the second time, hit it perfect. But that inconsistency, I think, is still kind of there, and tightening that up, and I'm starting to think, why is that? And we have so much big play potential, and I think early in the game, the feel I got was that Jordan was looking deep first. Shallow second, because they're blitzing and they're playing man, but they're playing an off man. Their underneath stuff was there, and then when we really pulled the game in the third quarter, one thing I noticed is that we hit some slants, we hit a couple, we hit some of those short throws to Coleman, hit some of, I think, to Williamson a couple times, and we started taking some of the underneath stuff in the third quarter.
Yep.
That's more the kind of thing. And then the other thing we did too, there was that one drive where Jordan ended up scoring after Trey ran it like 5 times in a row. We ran the ball 5 times in a row, right? Yeah. And 5 yards on first down with everybody pushing, that's a good thing. Let's do it again, and we did. And to me, it seems like when we get in these patterns where we're trying to hit the big chunk play and get behind the chains, and okay, it's like we want to throw the dagger in so early, instead of just let the game come to us. Those things will happen. Those plays will happen if we just keep getting a profit, as cliche as that is. Take the profit right now, and those plays will be there. And that seemed to be like what we hit at the end of last year. We were in that pattern. It seems like now we're just trying to deep, and then okay. To me, the offense. That's kind of the feel I get.
Yeah, well, listen, I thought maybe they do what they did was because that's where Syracuse defense struggles, right? Is against the pass. Their numbers are not very good, and they're much better against the run. And Florida State did have success, 34 for 191 on the ground. And listen, it looks like we're seeing Mark, you and I talked about it a lot during the early part of the season, particularly after the Boston College game. Now, apparently there was the flu going through that team or something. A lot of kids were sick that game, but Trey just did not look to be running like the Trey we got used to at the end of last season. And for whatever reason, Trey Benson seems to be running like the Trey Benson the last 2 games that we've become accustomed to. And now this is, to me, this is a totally different defense than Virginia Tech, because Syracuse is one of the best defenses in the nation. Against Clemson, they made 13 tackles for a loss in that game alone. They're one of the better defenses in that regard. And they had they averaged 5.6 per run, and that includes sack yardage. In this game, Toafili 7 for 93 with a touchdown long of 50. That was a great run by, and I know JP's a fan of Lawrence because he's right down there from home. And Trey,
our Largo guy,
for 74, 5.3. You saw CJ Campbell break one early. He played early, actually played earlier than I thought he would. Obviously played before Keziah, and we didn't see Rodney Hill today. But anyway, you got Deuce Spann involved in the run game and out of the goal line. Jaheim had a carry, no yards. But anyway, listen, it looks like Trey's back to being who we thought Trey was. And
well, apparently it's because he talked to Dalvin Cook on the phone or something.
Dalvin said, "You better start running harder. You're not going to get paid."
Exactly, 100%. And Mark, I think you had a great point on Travis. And sometimes I wonder how much of the Heisman hype affects that too. He probably looks at his numbers and looks at Penix's numbers and some of the other guys, and it's like the yards aren't there. Some of the other big numbers aren't there, but it's that can't matter. That just can't matter. You got to take what you're given. And it seems like he's holding the ball a little bit, trying to force that deep shot, and then trying to make a play when, if they're going to give you those 6, 7, 8 yarders in the air, and then who knows what happens after that, you take them and you keep taking them and taking them. And the other stuff will come. I could not agree with you more. And maybe he is trying to force it a little bit, but I would agree with you. If there's one thing that I think offensively that we're, and I've said, I think our best football is still ahead of us. Travis has not gotten into that rhythm yet where that we saw him at the end of last year when he was so freaking good throwing the football. He was hitting his back foot and letting it go. He was very, very decisive. He was reading things well. I just don't get, I'm not saying he's been bad. He's not at that level that he was last year.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? A little bit. And I think it's as simple as he's looking deep first, coming underneath second. By the time he comes underneath, it's already closed. Yeah. As opposed to going the other way.
Well,
and I think that's as simple as that, honestly.
Well, and listen, I know it's easy to say that, he's thinking about the Heisman and all. It's easy for us to critique that, say you really shouldn't worry about it, because we know that that's partly a team award, right? It goes to the best offensive player generally on one of the best football teams in the nation. So, that tends to take care of itself. And listen, I think that, he's going to have huge games against Miami and Florida in the ACC championship game to get back in that conversation. I think he's on the outside looking into that thing. And I think from now on, it's going to be team success. And listen, they need, for him to win the Heisman at this point, they need Miami to stay ranked. They need Duke to stay ranked. They need Florida to be ranked when they go to Florida. And then obviously it looks like you're going to be playing a ranked North Carolina or Louisville team in the ACC championship as things stand today, if you can make it. But those are the top 3 teams in the ACC right now. So I think, I think we'd all agree if he plays within the offense and they win ball games and they play enough ranked opponents, that's his path to the Heisman. So listen, I do want to ask you this because I got a couple texts during the game. I saw JP's tweet talking about play calling, particularly the 1st and 4 down to 4, and they leave with no points. I got a couple of texts. I saw some other stuff on social media, and obviously Zeiler asked us. His comments were, particularly the offense, they're still inconsistent. We sputter on offense. Do you think play calling is a part of that, Mark? And would you do anything different if you were designing the scheme for this game?
I don't think it's necessarily play calling, because I think that every play has different options. I think it's basically what your coach do. And look, it's easy to criticize play calling when you know the result.
Right.
It's always easier to do that. And look, I have total faith in Mike Norvell and how he calls a game. He's proven it to me over and over. I mean, this offense is one of the most productive offenses in the country, and you got to give them the good too. So I don't, you can criticize it going forward on fourth downs and maybe going against what the sheet says. But like I said, when you consider the whole totality of the game, that offense was not going to score 30 points against us. And plus, if you don't get it, then you have, first and 10 at the 4-yard line. So, there's not much of a downside there when you don't think that they're going to score a lot. So, I'm not one to criticize play calling because I was a play caller, part of the play caller, right? And so for me, I sat in that chair, and like I said, it's easy when you know the result,
JP,
I wasn't quite sure the fourth down and 4 play. And again, it's hard when you don't know the play call and what guys were supposed to do. I didn't know what the route concept was there. Just looked like there was about 4 guys in the right corner of the end zone. So I don't know exactly what that was.
On that one. When you roll out like that, you cut the field.
Yeah, I didn't get
it's just too many bodies.
Yeah, so I don't know. And again, we don't know if somebody ran the wrong route, what something happened. That was like, what was the concept of that play to get 4 yards? I didn't. And when you're down there, as you know, Mark, you got those 3 or 4 plays on your sheet that, are a little bit different than everything else that you've maybe set up beforehand. I want to see something, a little bit more special. And it looked like, I don't know what it was. So that was weird. And I didn't necessarily like taking Travis out in that situation, when you just need a half a yard or, not even a full yard. So other than that, I'm an O-line
coach. I want to run it or run a sneak, right?
Yeah. The sneak. You got less than a yard. I mean, just don't overthink it, man. And you got a good instinctual runner like Jordan. Just let him get it. 9 times out of 10, that's going to happen.
They did the second.
Yeah, exactly. And you must be like me too, Mark. I hate going in a shotgun when you need a yard. It's like, why are you throwing it 5 yards back?
You know who hates it more than anybody?
The center.
Julie Salva. Julie Salva sits here and goes, we just went from 3rd and 1 to 3rd and 8.
Right. It's like, I just don't get that. There's too many, well, whatever. So but again, this is, if we're going to come on this show and nitpick 41-3 losses, we're in good shape. We're in good shape. We're doing something right.
So let's talk. All right. So what, Mark, I'll ask you, we'll move on to some other stuff. But just what was your biggest takeaway from this game, coming out of this game today?
It was the most complete game on defense to me, and that is really encouraging. And that we have a heck of a lot of skill on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense. And losing a guy like Johnny Wilson and still have a guy come up with over 200 and something yards of total offense is incredible. And the backs that we have, the receivers that we have, Hakeem Williams, what a cut, right?
Yeah.
On that screen. I mean, that was, that's a good looking dude too, man. And and our young guys, I like the way our young guys came out and played. Julian Armilla going out on that screen on that pass. Some of our young secondary guys, we're long. I haven't been around these guys that much.
Well, they got some size in that secondary. Some of those young guys. Ashlyn Barker, Quindarius Jones, and Real Riles, all guys that got in today. Edwin Joseph.
Those guys are long,
I think we would have seen a little bit more Conrad Hussey if it wasn't for that penalty in the first half. He looked really good, but I think he got
I want to see more of him.
I do too. JP, what was your big takeaway from the day?
Just better run defense, better defense on the running quarterback, and got more guys involved, because I think you need a more varied offense as you go down. Because now it comes down, as you coaches know, there's more on the tape now. There's more. It's just not, let's go 14-4. Okay, we got that. Now it's like, there's a lot of other numbers that you got to put on the board now that you got to worry about. So that makes your primary guys even more dangerous, right? They can't concentrate as much on that because there's a lot more to defend now.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting more varied on offense, and the defense is getting better. And I like that aggressive tone they took today. Just get after them. We got too much speed on defense to not use that speed to get after guys and put pressure on them. If you give up a big player here or there, that's fine. But you're starting to force the action and using your speed to your advantage. You're just not sitting back and reacting. So I love that.
Yeah, and to your point, 7 receivers had multiple targets. Keon led with 11. You had 2 guys with 6, a couple of guys with 4, a couple of guys with 2. So that was good to see. Listen, and I agree with everything y'all said. I think, listen, we heard Adam Fuller talk about this defense, he thought coming into this season, this could be one of the top defenses in the ACC, if not the country. And obviously, we've seen that the last 2 weeks in the ACC. And really, they played pretty good against Clemson, better against the run than the pass. But so it's good to see that. And I think I go back to that point you made, Mark, early in the season. We were talking about, BC, and they didn't seem to play with much fire from where we were sitting. And they didn't, they seemed to let that get in the way and not go and take care of business. But this was a very business-like approach, and they dominated the team they should dominate. So that's always good to see. All right, guys. So we got a big game coming up next week. We're going to obviously get into that as the week continues forward. We'll see about Riley Leonard. They play tonight against NC State. He's not expected to play. Obviously, that will have a huge impact on that game next week if he's available or not available. But we will get a chance to look at their young quarterback tonight. But listen, guys, it was a very special weekend in Tallahassee, and I think we all have an affinity for the team that they celebrated today, which was a 1993 national championship team. We were all a part of that in some form or fashion. Mark, you were actually a graduate assistant on that staff. It was great to see. I saw guys I had not seen some of these guys in 30 years. Got a chance to spend some time with them last night in the Moore Center at the reception. I did not get to see many guys today. I got to see a bunch of the old coaches today. But just your memories of that 93 team. What do you think about when you hear 1993 national championship? And what are some of your favorite memories from that year?
You know what you don't remember 35 years later, you don't remember a lot of specifics. You remember how you felt, and I just, when you posted that picture of your dad and John Eason and Mickey and Brad and Mark and that, I just thought back to all those meetings, those hundreds of hours of meetings that we had together, and how much fun it was to have at our disposal Charlie Ward and all that talent, and to be able to draw out some of the things that we drew up and do the things that we did. It was just how much fun that was, and it just stood in awe at, just how good we were, and I remember one time Billy Sexton, sitting, on a pregame before one of the games that year, and we were sitting there. He goes, "How does it feel walking down on the field before the game starts, knowing you're going to win the game?" Yeah, I'm like, it's pretty damn good feeling.
That team dominated a lot of people.
Really
I remember. Obviously, the games were fantastic, but I'm just sitting here thinking. I remember being in the Moore Center. In the big lobby there. We would come in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The media would come in, and we just sit there while all the guys came through for lunch, and they just, and you grab Charlie and you grab Warwick and you grab Derek and you grab Eric Alexander, you grab all these guys, and I'm in Floyd, and I'm like, man, holy crap, what a load of talent. So many good guys that many went on to the NFL and had tremendous careers, but great guys, nice guys that would just sit down and chat with you, and and it just, they were like your friends. They'd come and sit down, and the coaches too, from John Easton to Mark Richt, and we used to play basketball in the Moore Center during lunches sometimes, and the assistant coaches would come down and play. It was such a great family atmosphere, and of course you get to, I get to go upstairs and talk to Coach Bowden one-on-one probably twice a week. He'd sit down with us, being a local station. So I just cherish those memories of the relationships that, 30 years later we still have. I just saw Derek at the hockey game the other night, we're chatting it up in Emily Arena 30 years later at a hockey game, for God's sakes, right? And just so many great relationships from that time. And just, some of the moments that I'll remember. I'll never forget the premature Gatorade bath.
Yes.
On Bobby. Oh my God. I remember just being on the sideline, and and I remember I was, from the vantage point I was at the old Orange Bowl, I was behind the last play where Derek dragged down, I think it was Lawrence Phillips, maybe. And I looked up at the clock as soon as the player hit the ground. I looked up at the clock and I saw that I think 2. It was 2 and a 1. It was just changing for it's in, and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna get a kick. I said, I think they're gonna get a kick, and everybody's running onto the field, and we're running on with our gear, and we're right behind Coach Bowden, and they're getting the bath going, and I'm like, I'm sick to my stomach, and I look over and I see the refs, they're kind of doing this number, and I'm like, oh my God, this is, and I'm doing the math in my head, like, how far is this field goal? How far is this field goal
I think
going
it
to
was
be?
47, wasn't
40,
it?
yeah, I think 47. And it was like, and I'm like, okay, their kicker sucks. All right, but it's in range. I mean, that would have, because if I'm not mistaken, we called the timeout or prematurely for Bentley's field goal. We should have called it with we left too much time on the clock. That was not a crystal ball, but it was a coaching blunder. We should have kicked that winning kick with no time left on the clock. I think we're all probably just freaking out, just trying to win the game. But so I remember that, and then when that kick went wide, it was like, God. I mean, I know how my stomach felt. I can't imagine how Coach Bowden's felt. I mean, in that moment. I mean, and then the rest, and it's history. Then it's marked because can you imagine? Can you in the Orange Bowl?
I knew the football gods wouldn't be that.
In the Orange Bowl,
let's just
come down to a field goal.
Let's just be glad we weren't playing Miami in that game.
It wasn't
boy.
Miami. That was Miami. It's not.
What a house of horrors, though.
Cool.
I was I'll never forget that moment.
I won't either. I was right there. I had come down from the booth, because we kicked the field goal and we ran down because we wanted to be part of the celebration. And running out on the field, that whole thing, that whole scenario was just like, oh god. And then to see him jack it left like one of my drives off the 10th tee was awesome. So
Shankopotamus, just in time.
That was a fun year. It was a great
year. And then at Florida, the Warwick Dunn play at Florida. I have never heard a stadium so loud go so quiet in my life. That was the most satisfying. I think of all my years.
The pressure was unbelievable at that point. They were coming back. The crowd was nuts. Yep. I mean, all that was right there. The whole season was on that play right there.
Yep.
And that happened was just unbelievable.
I can still remember where I was on that sideline, and he's passed me by, and I felt the wind go by.
Yeah.
I was on about the 25 on that end zone, standing there watching the game, and listen, it's I'm glad they honored the team. It's so great. Coach Sexton seems to be doing better. I hadn't seen Coach Eason in years and years. Probably since we were at South Carolina, Mark. It's probably the first time I've seen Coach Eason. And,
oh, really?
He walked up to me and goes, I recognize that face. And, then run into some of the players last night and ran into Darrell Bush. He was a true freshman on that team. And I was telling him about we went out one night during the Orange Bowl. We talked about that story. So it was kind of memory lane. My former roommate, Steve Gilmer, was here. We got to catch up. We were roommates his last year when he played at Florida State, living off campus, and just talking about all those times it used to be where the after parties were after games were at our house, and it was a fun night. It was a fun day to go through memory lane, and but I definitely wanted to ask you guys about it since JP, I think you were on the radio crew and obviously covering sports in Tallahassee at the time, and Mark, you were obviously on that staff, so it was fun to see those guys. I wish I could have spent more time with them, and I wish I could spend more time with you guys, but I told you we'd be quick. We will probably have a lot closer games to elaborate on as the season winds down. But listen, Florida
I'm old. Nap time.
Yeah, 6-0. Hey, you got Washington, Oregon to watch. You can't take a nap during that one, buddy. That's a big game. It's true. All those optics we were talking about on Friday. That's going to be a game that has optics that ripple back to the East Coast, because that's going to that game will have college football playoff consequences, as most games will.
Shocking development for a Pac-12. Pac-12 finally gets good,
and they're gonna implode on about January 1st. All right, guys. Well, listen, Florida State 6-0.
Enjoy it, boys.
Got Duke coming in at 7:30 or 8. That announcement will be made tomorrow. We'll be back after the Florida State Duke game. We'll be back this week with Seminoles Sidelines tomorrow night, and be back with our recruiting report on Wednesday, reeling them in. But if you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. We will have post-game coverage. I'm watching Bob and the gang work on stories right now. And then, of course, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Osceola YouTube channel, if you're watching us. But again, Florida State 6-0, 41-3. Got to celebrate the 1990-93 national championship team, and that scoreboard at the end of the game looked like a lot of the scoreboards that team saw. A lot of points for the home team, a lot of very few for the bad guys. So good to see. We appreciate y'all joining us, Mark. JP, thanks for joining me, man.
See you guys.
Go
Sign us off, Mark.
Go Noles, scalp them.
Thanks.